was just about to start this review and not have hit the record button. Man, I am not with it today. Okay, I'm not really with it any day. But anyway, we will get straight into today's review. And today's review, as you can tell, as usual, by thumbnails. You know, I almost wonder, why do I bother announcing it? It feels right to announce what I'm reviewing, even though you already know what I'm reviewing because, you know, advertising. But anyway, yeah, I'm reviewing No One Would Tell. So, No One Would Tell is a 2018 drama TV movie directed by Gail Harvey and written by Caitlin D. Friars. It's a remake of the 1996 TV movie of the same name. The movie explores physical and emotional abuse in teen relationships and is based on the true story of Amy Carnival, a 14-year-old who was murdered by her 16-year-old boyfriend Jamie Fuller in 1991. Aspects of the story, including names, have been changed. In my experience with watching TV movies, I have found that they're not usually the kind of films you walk away praising. They're often cheesy and cringeworthy and always making me yell at the screen with comments such as, "How is anyone falling for this?" The killer or stalker is always apparent and always beeping off the creep scale, and yet no one around them ever sees their deception coming. Also, the acting in these movies tends to be a mixture of overacting and painfully melodramatic. To my surprise, this is happening a lot lately, I must be losing my touch. None of this was the case with this movie. As it is a TV movie, I did look at it very carefully, just waiting for that eye-rolling moment, but it never came. For starters, it is wonderful to see Shannen Doherty back to full acting strength, and I think this was the perfect role for her to do. Each character gets to give a different perspective to the events of the movie, and Shannen's character of grieving mother Laura is just as crucial as Maitreya Scarwina's portrayal of abuse victim Sarah. I don't know if I pronounced her name right, I do apologize. This isn't necessarily relevant, but I feel it must be said. There is talk these days from people in the industry about how anything over 40 is old, and actresses of that age have nothing to offer. But the fact of the matter is, an 18-year-old can't play the role of a distraught and grieving single mother whose teenage daughter was in an abusive relationship and then murdered. To play that role and give that performance can only be done by a woman mature in years, and Shannen nails it perfectly. We see a woman blind to what her daughter is going through and devastated to learn not only was her child suffering, but now she is dead. How does one process so much information? Is there even such a thing as justice after that? How do you, as a parent, not be consumed with guilt for not seeing the signs and doing something? Even though it's never that simple, those thoughts are natural and can only be portrayed by a mature actress. To tell a proper story, especially one of this nature, it is important to show different sides to it. I thought the cast gave an exceptional performance. Maitreya really sold her performance of a lovesick teenager in an abusive relationship. She's in love, but she's scared of the person she loves. She's young and inexperienced, so she has no idea how to deal with this situation. Everything she goes through is spot on to the horrible experiences of abuse victims, afraid to leave and afraid to stay. And when she finally, with the help of her best friend, summons the courage to leave, that's when it all goes wrong. Any professional will tell you that when an abuse victim leaves their abuser, that's when the abuse gets worse and in many cases leads to the death of the victim. It's why so many seek shelters or police intervention or even go into hiding. It's the most dangerous time for a victim, and this movie depicts that. Sarah's abusive boyfriend Rob, played by Callan Potter, in another fit of rage declares he will not let her love someone else, and this cost her her life. It's easy from the outside to watch this character and say she's being stupid, just leave, but abuse is never that clear cut, and I think the scriptwork and Maitreya's performance do a fantastic job at depicting that. Callan Potter was frighteningly convincing in his portrayal of an abusive partner. The way he switches from kind, romantic and loving to furious and violent with a snap of a finger. How you can look charming and innocent and quickly look threatening and like a wild animal that would rip your throat out if you so much as looked at him wrong. For being only 20, Callan showed some impressive range and capabilities throughout his performance, to the point I was convinced he was a violent psychopath. I certainly see promising growth in his career. Chanel Pelosso also gave a great performance and added another layer to the story. She portrays Nikki, Sarah's best friend, and the first to notice that Rob isn't all that he seems. Her attempts to make her friend see reason continue to backfire until she realizes all she can do is show her love and support, because the more she tries to force her friend to her senses, the less receptive she becomes. The love and support do the trick, and Sarah comes to her senses, but still ashamed and scared despite her friend's advice, she keeps things quiet. Nikki also blames herself for not reporting the abuse, feeling she could have saved her friend, again showing the victims of abuse span beyond the person with the bruises. The pacing was quite perfect. The timeline does bounce back and forth between the trial and the events that lead to the prosecution, but it's not done too often as to confuse the viewer about the timeline itself. Unlike some other cases, in this one, the way it bounces back and forth was cleverly paced. Each time we see a section of the trial, it moves straight into showing us why that question or statement was said. So everything balances out and doesn't leave you wondering what is going on, making for good storytelling. There were two moments at the end of the movie that I really appreciated. One was dialogue written for Shannen's character, where while on the stand she does her best to reassure her daughter's best friend that what happened was not her fault. She then points out how horrible it is that the defense attorney is victim shaming a murder victim. It's an excellent point. In many abuse cases or rape cases, it's always the victim who is put on the stand and looked at with a magnifying glass. We shame the victims more than the abusers. It's reprehensible for someone even to try to blame a murder victim for the murderer's actions. Since these things do occur, I think it was great to have Shannen's character make a point to speak against this and remind people that in these circumstances, it's the offenders who should be shamed, not the victims. After this, I was highly impressed with the dialogue they gave to the judge, who was played by Mira Sorvino. In most shows or movies that feature a judge, the judge is given the usual lines of legal jargon. I always find this weird, as I like to watch clips from real courts and real judges, and in those, the judges always appear more animated and have a lot to say about their cases and are capable of feeling sympathy for either the victims or criminals. They're human and not robotic like how movies make them out to be. In this movie, Mira's character finds the defendant guilty and makes a point to speak about the horrible statistics of domestic violence and how many are killed as a result. She compares it to death during specific wars and shows how domestic violence has far higher casualties than in some of these wars, which is an insane and shocking statistic. She goes on to point out how this was not a victory and things will not change until we as people and as a society change. I didn't expect a simple TV movie to take such a strong stand on the issue and to try to send this message, but I was incredibly grateful that they did. I don't feel the original 1996 movie needed to be remade. I think they could have told the same story and made the same points without being associated with another film, or even a true story for that matter. Nevertheless, as far as remakes go, it's incredibly solid. It's modern and relevant and speaks to today's political climate and is done with strong performances and script work that together deliver a compelling story. While I'm not a fan of remakes, I wish more of them were as good as this one. Well, I really enjoyed reviewing this movie. It was really great seeing one of my beloved charmed cast members back in action, especially Shannen Doherty after her battle with cancer. So to see her coming back so strong, so good, and doing such a movie that tells such an important story, I think is really great. I don't know how many people are gonna see this. I do know some people said it was absolutely shit, you know, but again, that's the nature of movies and shows. We're all going to have different opinions, but I'm pretty sure if there are people who are going to go and watch it, they're bound to be charmed fans. Where's solidarity in that one? But anyway, if you have seen this movie, then please comment down below and share your thoughts on it, and until next time, bye.